you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewicki. Throughout Ukraine's path towards membership of the European Union, Hungary has arguably been the biggest stumbling block, with the country's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán staunchly opposing the idea of Kiev becoming part of the European community and even accusing Ukraine of unfriendly behind-the-scenes maneuvering. With a consultative referendum organized by the government now over, Orban seeks to demonstrate public support for his plan, even though his own political future is now in doubt. Joining us now is Hegedüs, Regional Director at the German Marshall Fund. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
So first of all, let's have these definitions straight, right? This is not a referendum as we know it, because it is not in fact binding. So what significance does it have?
Yes, I think we definitely need to make this clarification, and it's not even a consultative referendum. In no way is this consultation a constitutional form of direct democracy. It's actually an enhanced version of those online so-called national consultations that were used by the Orban government over the past 10 years, actually as a mobilization and propaganda effort. There are no integrity checks and procedural standards involved in this referendum. It can be both completed online and in person. And actually nothing excludes casting multiple votes. It's practically just a matter of a simple registration of another email addresses. And we know in the there is likely based on the communication of the Hungarian government, we can be more or less certain that they will state that more than 2 million Hungarians completed this consultative process, and over 90% are against the EU membership or the immediate EU membership of Ukraine. But mainly, this is only a tool of political communication, actually to control the agenda in the run-up of the 2026 Hungarian elections and to mobilize Hungarian voters around this single issue that most likely will be in the focus of the election campaign.
So for what you're saying, it's essentially a glorified online poll, but also it has an important function. Again, as you indicated, rallying people around the flag, right? There have been accusations that, for example, integrating Ukraine into the European Union would cost somewhere in the region of 2,500 billion euros. A massive amount for which no specific evidence has been produced, of course. It is easy to discuss stuff like that, naturally, given that Ukraine, for the time being, is nowhere close to joining the EU. But it is important for the question of motivation, right? Which brings me to the main question. Why do you think Viktor Orbán is actually so intent on blocking Ukraine's path forwards?
I think there are two good reasons. One is in the field of foreign policy, and another one is domestic. If we start from the domestic perspective, since 2018, Hungarian election campaigns were mono-thematic and always centered around the prospect or around the concept, of an external foreign enemy. 2018, that was the European Commission with its migration policy. In 2022, it was actually the fear that Hungary will be pulled into the war between Ukraine and Russia. And now the enemy is Ukraine and actually all the economic and political cost of the country joining the European Union in the future. And the Hungarian government is very professional in polling and actually surveying public opinion. And more or less, I think they are convinced now that they found the perfect topic, which can actually draw voters in other issues critical to the government in the voting base of Fidesz, because unfortunately, also based on neutral polling data, the question of Ukraine's EU accession is where the majority of the Hungarians are rather critical. From a foreign perspective, it's more or less obvious. The strategic goal over the past, I would say, 2 to 3 years was always that the Hungarian foreign policy supported Russian strategic aims. With the blocking of EU sanctions, or at least in some cases postponing EU sanctions and watering down EU sanctions against Russia, blocking financial support, EU accession talks, beginning of EU accession talks in 2023 of Ukraine, And we see the continuation of this process. Obviously, it's not just a Hungarian national issue. It's not only a key topic for the Hungarian government, but this behavior, Prime Minister Orbán also clearly serves the interest of the Kremlin.
So let's begin with the domestic issues, right? Because we've already seen that in other countries as well. Do skeptics have a point? But if Ukraine joins the European Union, some sectors of the economy will have to make some major adjustments. Agriculture, for example, or transport, in the same way that Western European countries had to adjust when the EU expanded eastwards first time around, with the inclusion of Poland, indeed also Hungary and other countries of the region.
Definitely, and obviously this discourse very much resembles actually some of the very critical narratives in the Western European countries against the 2004 enlargement round. However, I think what we must underline, no rash argument-based public discussion taking place in Hungary in a media space than in 70-80% is owned and dominated by the government party and their propaganda narratives. It's very important to underline that several polls were conducted around this question. And actually, even if the majority is critical, there are very big differences actually in the final results based on the question whether there is an urgency and the threat of immediate danger through the EU accession of Ukraine, like in the questions of the Hungarian government party, where practically a potential accession is portrayed as it could have happened even next year, or if questions have a more rational and fact-based approach and actually highlight that this is a long process, there is practically no chance that Ukraine can enter the European Union before 2030. And in that case, the number of the critical citizens drop even with 15 to 20%. So a lot happens actually, a lot depends actually from the quality of the public discourse. But unfortunately, the dominant public discourse in Hungary is far from being fact-based.
Now let's look at the international dimension. There have been mutual accusations of espionage between Hungary and Ukraine. This is actually getting serious because it is not just about opposing Ukraine's EU accession, but these accusations there related also to the ethnic Hungarian minority in Ukraine itself. How do you think these are going to play out within the next couple of months and beyond? Are we looking at a diplomatic escalation there?
I think it's fair to say that we can expect a diplomatic escalation and also a domestic escalation within Hungary. Actually, key members of the Hungarian opposition party, Respect and Freedom, are accused now with espionage charges, espionage for Ukraine. And we can expect actually rather authoritarian legislations coming out from the government and the Hungarian parliament in the coming months that, for example, would like to further limit media freedom in Hungary if a civil society organization or a media outlet is allegedly spreading Ukrainian propaganda. So escalation is very, very likely in this process.
Would that be an extension of the foreign agents law, which is already being prepared, for example?
Formally, not necessarily. There are rumors that an executive order may come from the government even before September. So actually the passing of this new foreign agent law was postponed to September. But there are executive orders sooner that is specifically targeting Ukrainian propaganda. But I think here the key takeaway is, and this is what international partners also need to keep in mind, that anti-Ukrainian the main narrative tool of the Hungarian government in the 2026 election campaign, and unfortunately it will create a lot of space for escalation, both at the domestically.
You've mentioned Viktor Orbán acting as a vessel for certain Russian narratives and also certain policies being implemented by Russia vis-à-vis the European Union. So the big question is, how does the EU, and possibly also NATO, because these issues tend to be related on questions of defense, for example, are able to find a workaround for this situation? Because wherever you actually have unanimity required, Hungary can always say, no, we're going to veto this. Is the European Union prepared for this challenge?
this is the $1 million question now actually for the past 15 years. Obviously, the key what-to-watch item is the extension of the EU sanctions against Russia at the end of this month. We know very well that even in January, Hungary seriously threatened a veto to the extension. And in that time, the intervention of State Secretary Rubio and actually the US diplomacy solved the situation and set the record straight for the Hungarian government that even the United States would be highly critical in the case of a Hungarian veto. I think it would be very necessary to have another US intervention, even if the president on the Hungarian government that they are not playing with the extension even this time. In the longer run, obviously, a stable solution to the situation could be either domestic, the change of the government in Hungary, and we can actually see some silver lining here. In all polls, the opposition party Respect and Freedom is clearly leading before Fidesz. On the basis of some polls, could even have a constitutional majority in the next Hungarian parliament. So I think the question is not whether the opposition can win by this election in Hungary, but whether there will be free elections that would allow the opposition to win. So this is, again, a very important point. International partners need to be prepared. An EU law-based solution could be, obviously, if Prime Minister Orban sticks to the power, the suspension of the voting rights. But we know very well that, again, as you mentioned, due to the unanimity criteria, it used to be a very problematic process in the past and will also remain in the future. Here I only would to highlight that there is a never returning window of opportunity practically between the passing convention of Russia, because in this period only the Slovak government and Prime Minister Fico can be considered as a really close ally of the Hungarian regime, who need to be convinced about the potential support for Article 7. Beyond October, with the potential new Czech government, I think the number of potential veto players who are ready to save actually the Hungarian government will grow, and that will actually render Article 7 even more dysfunctional.
So we have plenty of unanswered questions regarding how the European Union is going to proceed with that at a later stage. For the time being, Daniel Hegedüs was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us for more latest news, updates and commentary.